YouTube, how the duck you doing? Duck Films here. Welcome back to the channel. And today I'm giving you my updated tier list for Marvel Rivals Season 1. Now Season 1 has brought a lot of changes to heroes in Marvel Rivals, as well as the addition of two new characters, both Invisible Woman and Mr. Fantastic. Now just like in my previous tier list video, I'll be placing my pick and then explaining why I think it should be in that category. As well as if you're new here or find yourself coming back on a regular and you aren't already subscribed yet, why not? You're coming back anyways and it's completely free. We're pushing for 10,000 subscribers, so might as well hop in. Without further ado, let's get started. Now diving straight into our first category of tanks, we begin with none other than Doctor Strange. Now I first want to talk about the changes that were made to Doctor Strange for Season 1. So first and foremost, they added damage falloff to Maelstrom of Madness and Gamma Maelstrom, starting at 5 meters and reducing to 70% at 8 meters. I mean, it's not the biggest change in the world, but it is a change. Then they slightly decreased the shield value recovery rate after releasing Shield of Deceptrum from 80 seconds to 70 seconds. Now in my opinion, I don't think these changes are enough to knock him down a tier because he's still a very solid tank in Marvel Rivals. And because of that, for Season 1, I'm still going to be placing him in the S tier. He's a very versatile character suitable for all situations. His team up abilities and combos, even though they were slightly nerfed, are still exceptionally powerful, making him one of the strongest tanks in the game. And like I previously stated, the only minor drawback is his portal's long cooldown, but its strength definitely compromises for that. And I truly believe he's S tier due to his consistency and versatility. But like always, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Following Doctor Strange, we now come to Hulk. And Hulk also received a change for Season 1. Now he only really had one change, but what they did was reduce the indestructible guard gamma shield value for Hero Hulk from 250 to 200. Now with the change only being about 50 shield, I mean it's not the end of Hulk or anything. I think Hulk is still very good. They didn't really change up the combos with Iron Man or Doctor Strange, so Hulk, in my opinion, is still sitting at a very decent spot. With that being said, I'll be placing Hulk at A tier. Initially, he's perceived as strong, but he has certain limitations. His team-up abilities with Iron Man and Doctor Strange is formidable in high elo, but it often results into him getting banned. I will say, however, in lower elos, his impact diminishes due to the freedom of hero selection. So take it as you will. Of course, again, just like for all my characters in tier lists, I always love to hear your comments and what you think. Everybody has their own opinion, and I respect all of your opinions as well. Now Magneto is interesting for Season 1 because he didn't get any changes, and I honestly thought he was going to be getting some sort of change, whether that being a buff for or nerf for just changing around in this kit. I generally thought he was going to get changed, but he didn't receive any changes, so my statement still stands that Magneto is S tier, as he's a crucial part of many team compositions with few notable weaknesses. I believe Magneto performs well in both high and low elo environments, and he is a debatable topic. I could see him being considered a tier compared to Doctor Strange, but regardless, I still believe he's a super top tier tank. Now Thor is definitely a very interesting hero. To me, he acts more like a damage or a duelist type character rather than a tank, but regardless, he's still placed in the Vanguard category. Now Thor did in fact receive changes for Season 1. They increased his base health from 500 to 525, so a 25 increase, which is very good for Thor. And then they added immunity to crowd control effects during God of Thunder ultimate ability. And that is something that I think is a very good change for Thor, because there'll be moments when you're ulting as Thor, then all of a sudden you're slept by Mantis and you're kind of just depressed after. Now with that being said, where do I place Thor? Now personally, I think Thor is still placed between A and B, but for the sake, I'm placing him in the A tier. Now, I will say he's primarily picked for his Hela team-up combo, but suffers in high elo due to frequent bans on Hela. But in lower elo, Thor becomes more viable as players can execute the Hela Thor combo without bans. With that being said, I think he's still outshined by stronger tanks like Doctor Strange and Magneto, but we're not really sure until we see a better, well-defined meta. Now comes our big, thick friend, Groot. Now Groot was another character that didn't receive a change with Season 1, which I think is okay. I think the character is very solid. And I truly believe he's an underrated tank with great utility. His building abilities and synergy with characters like Rocket Raccon make him valuable in both high and lower elo. For his strengths, I do believe he has a strong ultimate paired with decent team-up potential. Now, I do want to give you a recommendation. I believe he works extremely well with Doctor Strange, especially in higher level play. With all of that being said, I'm going to be placing Groot in A tier as well. Now Peni Parker, she didn't receive any changes for Season 1. And you might see some YouTube videos of, someone playing her in higher elo, and it's actually working. but I still truly believe this character is just not the best. I believe she performs poorly in high elo due to a lack of impactful abilities compared to top tier tanks. I will say in lower elo, however, she can be annoying to deal with as players are less experienced in countering her or just going against some of her abilities. With that being said, for myself, I'm going to be placing Peni Parker in the low C tier. Although this tier list can always be changed and is flexible, but that's what I believe she deserves to be placed at. Next up, we have Captain America, Steve America, whatever you want to call him. Now, Captain America did receive some changes in Season 1, making him a bit better. So first and foremost, they reduced the delay time for shield restoration after releasing Living Legend from 3 seconds to 2, which is a very solid change. They reduced the Liberty Rush cooldown from 12 seconds to 10, and they increased his base health from 650 to 675, as well as they reduced the energy cost for releasing Freedom Charge from 3,400 to 3,100, and they also reduced the additional health provided per second to self after releasing it from 110 to 100. Now, to me, Captain America is a very interesting character, especially after these changes. I think he's a very solid tank choice, but I will say I don't think he can solo tank like a Doctor Strange or Magneto. He's in the same boat as Thor and Hulk, they're off tanks. With that being said, after the changes to Captain America, I believe he is a situational tank who doesn't bring much utility compared to stronger options like Doctor Strange or Magneto, and I will say he's playable in high elo with skilled players, but it's generally outclassed in low elo. With that being said, and all the changes, I think he deserves to be placed between A and B, like a B plus, A minus type of thing. I don't think he's bad enough to be in B tier, but I don't think he's good enough to be in A tier. With that being said, so it doesn't look like everything is actually placed in A tier, I'm placing Captain America in B tier. But again, I still believe he's between the two. So for Venom did in fact receive a change for Season 1. They increased his symbiotic resilience bonus health ratio gain per lost health point from 1 to 1.2, making him a bit tankier when he pops that ability. And they increased the base damage of Feast of the Abyss ultimate ability from 40 to 50. So again, I think this is a very solid change. Now, with that being said, Venom definitely excels in dive compositions, particularly with like Spider-Man. While he has potential in higher elo, he's more effective in low elo where players struggle to counter his playstyle. Now, I will say he has the potential, or he could move up in tier with better understanding and synergy in high level play. And of course, with the changes, I believe he's between B and A. So again, another case like Captain America between the two. Now, before you comment down below all these choices are bad or whatever, I'm trying to make, everything a little bit more spread out. But generally, I believe he's between A and B. Now, for organization's sake, I'm placing him in B tier. Now, I truly believe in cases he definitely can seem like an A tier character, and that's perfectly fine. Like I said, I think he's split between the two tiers, but overall, I'm just going to be placing him in B. And of course, everybody has their own opinions, which is perfectly fine. Instead of being super rude in the comments, all you could literally say is you disagree, then why? Whenever a content creator posts a tier list video, for whatever reason, I see so much toxicity for whatever reason. I'd much rather you, instead of being toxic, literally just explain why you disagree. Because I believe it's better just to hear different opinions rather than someone, saying wrong, you're wrong, or whatever. But I digress. So diving straight into our Duelist category, we're beginning with Black Panther. Now, Black Panther did receive a change for Season 1, and they reduced the additional health provided to self after refreshing Vibranium marks with Spirit Rend. That number being 40 to 30, and the upper limit of additional health provided from 120 to 75. Now, I will say this is a rather significant change to a Black Panther player, especially the limit of the additional health is a major disadvantage now. With that being said, I still believe he's a well-rounded character, but he lacks the raw damage output of an S tier pick. Now, what I mean by that is that he can dominate games, but of course it has to be with the right player. With all of that said, I don't believe, Black Panther's S tier, but even with these nerfs, I still believe he's in the A tier category. Now, I still believe he can definitely be a menace in your game, and definitely shouldn't be overlooked. Now, Black Widow is a very interesting character. She also received some changes for Season 1. They increased the range of the first effect of Edge Dancer from a 3-meter radius to a 5-meter radius. They reduced the time required for Fleet Foot to recover from 0 stam to full from 12 seconds to 4, and they also reduced the time required for Electroplasm Explosion ultimate ability to reach maximum power from 1 second to 0.6. Now, this character, I really wanted Black Widow to be good. even with the changes, I still don't think it's enough. I think her effectiveness is minimal in higher elos where players know how to counter her, especially with the prevalence of dive comps in the current meta. So with all of that being said, I still believe Black Widow is in the D tier. Of course, you know, people can always have their own opinions. Now, if you do enjoy playing Black Widow and you think you're doing a lot with her, good for you. So for Hawkeye did receive, you know, a change for season 1. They slightly reduced the spread angle between every 2 blast arrows. As well, they reduced the triggering distance of the passive ability Archer's Focus from 60 meters to 40. They also reduced the maximum additional damage of his passive from 80 to 70. Now, with all of that being said, do I think that was enough to bump him out of S tier and drop him all the way down to say like B or C? Basically, no. I think Hawkeye is still a very strong character. You can still perform, you know, one-shot headshots. I mean, he still does lack in, you know, mobility and escape. I still see him getting banned, you know, in the higher elos. So me personally, I place him between A and S, and I'm still leaning more towards the S tier. Now, you could debate and say that those nerfs were enough to bump him down. However, I still see him as a very strong pick. Now for Hela, she also got changed for season 1, and when I read the patch notes, I was actually very depressed. All they did was reduce the base health from 275 to 250, and they also dropped the seasonal damage down a bit, but it was nothing that was, you know, over the top or extreme. So I'm gonna stand on business. I still believe Hela is probably one of the best DPS in this entire game, even though she did kind of receive a little bit of a nerf. So I still firmly believe she is a S tier character. Until she receives a significant, you know, damage nerf or something like that, then I would say she drops a couple tiers, but until then, she is S tier in my books. Now, Iron Fist did not in fact receive any changes for season 1. Now, with that being said, I still think Iron Fist is a strong character in 1v1 situations, especially in lower elo, where players don't necessarily know how to counter him. I will say in higher elos, he has pretty much zero effectiveness. Honestly, if you just open your eyes and be aware of where the Iron Fist is, he can't really do anything to your team. Now, I do understand that players might have trouble playing against an Iron Fist, and I completely understand that viewpoint. I think it's okay to have trouble against certain characters, but to me, I don't think that changes my opinion of him. With that being said, as well as there's just being a lot better picks to play instead of Iron Fist, I'm placing Iron Fist in the C tier. Now for Iron Man, he in fact did not receive any changes, which is actually surprising, especially because his team-up ability is so damn strong. Now, like I had previously stated, initially, I didn't view him as a strong character, but his synergy with Hulk and Doctor Strange, along with the team-up ability, makes him powerful in higher elos. I still think this character paired with, you know, Hulk and Doctor Strange is still going to be the meta right now. And with that being said, I think I'm placing him S tier still. Until I see a change, you know, really to the Gamma team-up, or a change to, you know, Iron Man in general, I still believe he's S, but I understand if you want to put him lower in the A tier, I completely understand that view as well. Now Magik, the Queen of Limbo, did receive a change for season 1. She was given increased Umbral Incursion damage in Dark Child form from 115 to 135, so giving her a little bit more damage. And Magik is the case of another character that I think can be very good with the right player, but most of the time in higher elos, if you know you're going against a very good Magik player, it's usually ending up target banned. Now there's practically only two ends of the spectrum. You're either very good with Magik and can completely dominate a game, or you're like me playing Magik, going 0-13 and can't do anything. And because of that, I think it's fair to me in the middle of that spectrum I gave, which is ultimately placing Magik in the B tier. Now Moon Knight did in fact get a change for season 1, and that was giving a slight buff to his ultimate ability, Hand of Khonshu. Hopefully, as you remember previously, his ultimate can be rather easy to dodge if you just open your eyes and look up. I mean, I can go on and on about the amount of times I ulted as Moon Knight and got 0 kills because it literally everyone just moved out of it. But what they did was increase the number of talons generated by the Hand of Khonshu ultimate ability from 10 to 14, which ultimately means more damage for a little bit longer time. They also increased the explosion radius of each talon from 4 meters to 5, so players, you know, will actually be getting hit by his ultimate. And I got to try this firsthand, and let me just say his ultimate is definitely a lot better. Now, with all that being said, I believe Moon Knight is definitely effective in low elos where players often don't know how to counter him. And I will say that his grapples and angle flanks can be challenging to deal with, but his success in higher elo is limited due to players being more prepared. I mean, there are a lot lot of different ways to counter Moon Knight, so Moon Knight in higher elos can, be rather challenging. Now, because of that, and with everything I said, I think it's fair to put, Moon Knight in the middle of the pack. I think he's, B tier worthy, but because of his ultimate change, I think he sits between B and A. Now, when I'm putting these characters in the list, in whatever order they are in the list, it doesn't reflect anything. It's just the order I'm going in down my spreadsheet. Next up, we have Namor, Namor Jr., whatever you want to call him, I don't really care. So he did receive some type of a change. It was more like a optimization rather than anything, but they adjusted the throwing field of the Monstro spawn and Frozen spawn. With that being said, I still go back to my closed alpha play of him. I still believe that this character is very strong, and most often than not, he's actually slept on. Now, I say he sits between A and S tier, but I will say I lean more towards the A tier because he definitely has some faults. For Psylocke, she did receive a little bit of a tune-up. Now, Dance the Butterfly, or her ultimate ability, will check for barriers including Magneto's Metal Bulwark, Hulk's Indestructible Guard, and etc., so that there's more options for other heroes to counter her ultimate. Now, with that being said, I still believe that this character is, strong. I think there's a lot of good Psylocks in the game. Now, I don't believe she's S tier. I'd rather put her on the A tier still. There wasn't really that much of a change to her, and I still think she remains in the same place. Now, for Punisher, did Punisher receive a change for Season 1? Let me check. He did. They slightly reduced the spread of deliverance and adjunction. If I mispronounced that, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not good at pronunciation. But basically, all they did was slightly increase the damage capability of Frank's weapon, so they made him stronger, I guess. With that being said, I think he still sits at S tier. I think, he's very good. And there's ultimately no reason why you shouldn't play him, but yeah. Now, Scarlet Witch, this is a character that received a lot of changes. So, they increased Wanda's combat strength. So first, they increased the Chaos Control's fixed damage from 50 a second to 60. However, they reduced the percentage damage per second from 5% to 3, which is a pretty major change. And they increased her burst's projectile damage from 30 to 35. Look, I still don't think this character is good. I've tried her in the old season, I tried her in the new season. I think she's still the same. That 5 to 3%, yeah, I made her worse in my opinion. With that being said, I think she sits C tier. Look, I don't think she's as bad as Black Widow, but I definitely don't think she's gotten better. And I do want to say, if you truly think Scarlet Witch is a good hero in this game, I just want to tell you one thing. I genuinely don't think we're playing the same game. Now that leads us to Spider-Man. Now, I don't think Spider-Man received any changes. No, Spider-Man did not receive any changes for Season 1. With that being said, just like my old tier list, I think he's kind of still stuck in the same place, hovering around the B tier. Now, of course, there's an exception. There's always very good, skilled individual. One of those players being Necros. If you're not familiar with him, he's a very good Spider-Man. He used to play Genji in Overwatch. He's one of those exceptions that would, place Spider-Man higher solely because of him. But for, the majority, not a lot of players are very good with Spider-Man. I just want to go with, the general majority of players. So I'm going to stick him at B tier. But of course, there's always an exception. Following that, we have Squirrel Girl, and Squirrel Girl did receive a change for Season 1. So the addition of a new effect to the unbeatable Squirrel Tsunami, her ultimate ability, the squirrels will rush towards the nearest enemy after bouncing instead of bouncing randomly. So that definitely is a major change. Instead of her ultimate going, random, it will actually start going towards enemy. So again, makes her stronger. However, they did reduce the Squirrel Tsunami health from 600 to 300 because of that previous change. Now, even though that change is, generally, it's a very good change for that character, and I think it's something that was needed, I still don't believe that makes her, any much stronger. So we'll go with just the middle and place her at the tier of B, which is kind of safe. Now, Starlord did not receive really any changes for Season 1. I still do believe this character is, a very solid character. I think he can output a ton of damage. His ultimate is rather good. He has a ton of mobility, a lot of escape, just a whole bunch of being a nuisance to the enemy team. So I think it's fair and safe to say I'm going to be keeping him as my old tier list at the level of A, and I don't think there's really any reason to push him up or push him down. Now for Storm, she finally received some love. They increased the wind blade projectile speed, or her primary attack, from 100 meters a second to 150, and her left click damage from 50 to 55. So she's definitely a lot stronger than what she once was, and of course I'm very biased to her. They increased the bolt rush damage from 70 to 80, which is her alternative attack or her right click, and they buffed her ultimate ability. The bonus health provided for herself will increase from 350 to 450, and then the extra health will no longer vanish instantly, but will diminish slowly. Now, with all of that being said, playing this character at an extremely high level is still rather challenging, and there's definitely still a lot of faults and counters to her. Now, I originally, in my previous tier list, had her, I believe, at C, but for Season 1, because of the changes, and because I'm very biased, I'm moving her up to the B tier. But of course, I'm very biased to her. So now for Winter Soldier or Bucky, whatever you want to call him, he did receive some changes. They decreased his long-range combat strength and increased his survivability in medium to close-range combat. They increased the bonus health provided by the Bionic Hook and Tainted Voltage from 30 to 40, so a 10 health increase, which is very good. They increased his primary weapons damage from 70 to 75, and they reduced the area damage from 70 to 65, and they reduced the damage decay from 65 at 40 meters to 60%. They also increased his base health from 250 to 275. Now I think this character is very strong, very good. I don't think he's S tier, and I do believe that these changes put him in a very good place. With that being said, I'm placing him in the A tier. Wolverine, you better hide your tanks and hide your wife because he's coming to steal them. This character is a menace, and he even received a buff with Season 1. So first, they did a increase to his basic combat strength, but they did do a slight decrease to the additional survivability after activating his Undying Animal ability. So they increased his base health from 300 to 350, and they reduced the damage reduction ratio provided by Undying Animal from 50 to 40. Look, I think this character is great. For Season 0, I placed him A tier regardless of what anyone else said, and I still personally believe he's A or S tier. I think he sits right between the two, like A plus S minus. I think for him to be truly at S tier, he has to do a little bit more damage to the squishier targets, but I personally think if he did more damage to squishier targets, Wolverine would be the most broken character in the entire game. Now for my sake, I think I'm going to be placing him on the A tier, and like I said, I do believe he sits between A and S. So Mr. Fantastic, a new character to our hero lineup. He is definitely a very interesting character. He has a lot of survivability, I will say. If you play Mr. Fantastic right, you should practically never die. With that being said, I think he also does, quite a lot of damage for, someone like him. I firmly believe he sits between B and A. He can definitely be annoying when a whole bunch of players are trying to spam him and get him right away, but I think he still, has a lot of counters that go after him very easily. But my gut feeling is truly to put him in A tier, but let me know what your opinions are on Mr. Fantastic in the comments below. I would love to see what you guys think of this character. Now, Adam Warlock didn't receive any changes for Season 1, so I still think he's in the same position. I think he can be a very, very good strategist in the right hands. But at the lower elos, not a lot of people understand how his kit works and often results in dying a lot or not getting enough heals out for his team. But I truly believe that this character is a very good strategist and people should learn how to play him. So I think it's fair and safe to say that I think putting him in the A tier is, a good choice. Now, Cloak and Dagger is a very interesting strategist. I do believe they got some changes. They did. So for Season 1, they reduced the Dagger Storm cooldown from 15 to 12 seconds, making her healing output be a little bit higher because, her Dagger Storm is on cooldown less. And they increased the number of dashes in Eternal Bond Ultimate from 3 to 4, making her healing and damage output a lot higher, especially when she uses her ultimate. In my opinion, she sits between A and S tier. I don't think she still does enough healing to be on par of like Mantis or, Luna Snow, so I think putting Cloak and Dagger A is fine. Now for Jeff did receive some changes. So they adjusted its Jeff ultimate ability range from a 10 meter sphere to a 10 meter radius, so a 5 meter high cylindrical spell field. And then they increased the healing of Joyful Splash from 140 a second to 150. Now that is a pretty substantial change, 140 to 150. But I just feel like, especially at higher elos, unless you're like insane at Jeff, I don't think Jeff is good for healing. Again, this is from a higher elo perspective. I don't think it's good to have a Jeff. I'd much rather have, anyone else. Like, Honestly, I would much rather have any other healer than Jeff. For that sake, I'm putting Jeff at B tier. Now, Loki didn't receive any changes for Season 1, but this character has been just growing on me so much between the last time I made a tier list till now. The last time I made a tier list, I was probably one of the only people that put him at, A tier. Now, I truly believe, as I've, gotten to play him a little bit more and realized, the full extent of his kit, I genuinely believe this character is S tier. I think he just does so much for his team. The fact that you could, double up on a, secondary strategist. Ultimately, like, you could have 2 Luna Snows ulting. Now, this character just does everything. A lot of people sleep on him or, just skip over him. But I truly believe he's a super solid pick. So, S tier he goes. Now for this next part, I'm going to kind of combine these two characters. So we have Mantis and Luna Snow. Now they both did receive a change. Now for Mantis, they did reduce the Nature's Favor passive movement boost from 2.5 meters a second to 1.5. Now let me tell you something. That does absolutely nothing to this character. It doesn't change her healing output, it doesn't change what everything she can do. All it is that she's a little bit slower than what she used to, but if you think about it, she's already faster than everyone in the game, they just made her a little bit slower. So literally, I still believe she's S tier, there's literally nothing, wrong with her. Then for Luna Snow, all they did was increase the interval for switching between healing and damage in Fate of Both Worlds from 0.1 second to 0.5, so you can't use that tech where you use your squirrel wheel and uncap it and you can instantly swap between the two. You can't do that anymore. But regardless, I still also believe she's S tier as well. They still both do a ton for their team, and I don't see any downsides to putting them any lower. But of course, this could all just be my hot take, so let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do they still both deserve to be in the S tier? If you don't believe they do, let me know in the comments why. Now, Raccon did receive a change for Season 1, and they increased the healing of the repair mode from 60 per second to 70 per second. And if you don't know what the healing mode is, that's his healing ability where he shoots out that ball. Instead of it healing 60 a second, though, does 70, making him a bit better. No, I don't believe he's on par of, the other two or other three, Loki, Mantis, Luna Snow. I don't think he can do what they do. But I still believe he's a way better pick than Jeff. But I still don't think he's amazing enough to be S tier. I think he's a solid A tier. Now that's for a couple of reasons. First, he can revive one teammate. He can give armor, give people a jump boost, and he can even empower all of his team pretty significantly. He has very good mobility and rather good escape, and there's different, movement techs and mechanics that you can do. So I think it's fair and safe to put him in A. Now here comes Mommy. Invisible Woman. Where do we think this character stands on the tier list, especially with the current meta going on? Now, I put, quite a lot of time into her already. I think she's a very solid healer. She definitely takes some getting used to. She's not like the other healers. She's a rather aggressive healer. She has 2 abilities that damage, or I guess 3 because of her primary attack as well, which I feel is a lot more than some of the other characters. Now, I don't believe she is... It's hard to say. I don't think she's on par with Mantis, Loki, or Luna. I still think those characters outshine and outperform her. I genuinely think I put her A tier. I don't really know. She's like... it's hard. Like, she can be very good. Don't get me wrong. I think all of her utilities incredible. I think she has a lot of potential to be very good. I don't think she's bad enough to be placed with Jeff in B tier. I don't think she's good enough to really be in S tier and really shine. I think she's good. Like, that's all I can really say. She's good. I don't know. I put her A tier. This could be wrong or a hot take. I think I put her A tier. I mean, I can see why people would put her S, but I still think you just put her A. I don't know. Now, I think if I were to do like a last second change or maybe mess around with the list a little bit more, I think the only characters I would consider moving is like Thor and Hulk, and I think they would be moved down a tier. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. If anything, I put them like in between, B and A. It's like, honestly, in this game, it feels like pretty much every single character is decently good, with the exception, of course, a couple, that being, like Black Widow and Scarlet Witch. But I think overall, like, every character is solid. There's like, every character can be played a specific way. Characters can be countered. It's not the end of the world if someone swaps to a different character. There's still ways to play around, counters. You can still play around these counters or whatever. It's not like Counterwatch or Overwatch, what you're used to. This game has a lot of possibilities for, you know, a different scenarios, different things. But overall, I think I'm genuinely happy with the tier list I made. I think this is locked in. But of course, everybody has their own opinions about, you know, whatever. But from my perspective, you know, being a higher rated player, you know, I wouldn't say I'm amazing at the game, you know, Eternity GM, I'm not amazing. I'm not the best player. Like, I know that. I suck at games. No, I'm not amazing at these games, but sometimes I have my moments. But generally, I think what I have right here is okay for right now. I think with Season 1 just dropping, I think this tier list is fine. It can always be changed later on. This isn't final for me. But hopefully this gives you guys some relative direction when you're picking characters, you know, based on all of the changes. Of course, I have to ask you, if you're new here or find yourself coming back on the regular and you aren't already subscribed yet, why not? It's completely free and you're coming back anyways. We're pushing for the goal of 10,000 subscribers where we might possibly be giving away a battle pass. And to enter that giveaway, all you have to do is subscribe and like the video. But anyways, I hope you have a great weekend and I'll catch you in the next one.